Hello and welcome to Studio RC. My name is Pastor Max and I am an alcoholic. I welcome you to Studio RC, an encouragement for your recovery and your faith. The current series that we are starting today, and this will be the beginning for each of the different episodes. Today is The Classics. We are starting a series called The Classics. Before Dr. Bob and Bill W. had a big book, before they had a step book, before they had any of those books, the only book that they had was the Bible. And there were three different areas that they looked at, and we're going to look at those same areas. So they frequently, in the beginning of AA, before, again, there was any literature, they used three different books. One, they would look at 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, to try to help inform them how they should live in life and how they should live with other people and what love looked like. They also looked at the book and read the book of James. They were almost named the James Gang after the book of James. And the book of James embodies faith without works is dead. And so that, again, that action of working with other alcoholics. And then they also read Jesus' Sermon on the Mount from Matthew 5 through 7. And so in this series, we're going to take a look at those three different areas. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 13. We're going to look at James. We're going to take two different episodes to look at James. We're going to look at the Sermon on the Mount. We'll break that down as well. We'll look at chapter 5 as the first part and chapter 6 and 7 as the second part. So this will be a 5-part series on the classics. So each episode will start with this, and then we will go into one of the specifics that they always highlighted and looked at, and bless them, and I pray it will bless you. So without any further ado, let's jump right in to this week's episode of The Classics. So this episode we are going to look at 1 Corinthians 13, commonly known as the love chapter. And this is the kind of scripture that many people are familiar with. It's read at a lot of weddings. It's this beautiful description of love. And, it kind of reminds me almost of the 11-step prayer, that prayer of St. Francis of, make me a channel of my peace. And it goes through all these things that kind of raises the bar on our behavior. And I think that this chapter, again, indicates how or what it looks like or what it could look like to love others. And I think the longer you stay clean, the longer you stay sober, the bar continues to get raised on what is acceptable behavior, what is appropriate behavior. I had men in my life when I was in early recovery telling me, a sober man doesn't do that. We can, or does do that, and we can even say a sober man or woman of God doesn't do that or does do that. And this lays it out pretty well, some of the ways to consider how to continue to grow in our faith as well as service as we carry the message. Now, before we get started, before we jump into the love chapter, I'm going to read it and then we'll analyze it a little bit and kind of go through it a little bit. But our English language so often seems insufficient. Love is a great word and starting point for the limitations of English. Because we could say, I love ice cream, I love my church, I love my family and my children, And although each one is the same word, love, what I'm expressing about my children is probably different than ice cream. As much as and as good as ice cream can be, we only have one word for love. I think of sometimes in the colder climates, again, we have one word for snow, and some of the folks in Alaska and in that general area, who are indigenous to that, they have like 21 words for snow because there's so many different variations. We here in the lower 48 just say snow, but so like the same goes for love. There were 4 different words in Greek. There are a couple different in Hebrew, but we're going to just look at the 4 Greek words really quickly, and then I'm going to indicate what they're talking about in 1 Corinthians 13. But the first kind of love was eros, or romantic love, also where we get erotic, and those kind of words were based on this Greek word eros, romantic love. You had storge, which is this family love, familia love, the love that you have for your parents or your children. Philia, which is a brotherly love. I live just outside Philadelphia, which is the city of brotherly love. Go Eagles, go Birds. All right, but Philadelphia, Phila is brotherly love, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. And then the last Greek word for love is agape, which is divine love. And you maybe have heard of agape. And it's the love that has no strings, no ifs or buts, and no expectations. Agape love is a divine love, unconditional, sacrificial, and pure. And so when we are reading 1 Corinthians 13, and they use the word love, the Greek word that they are using, you guessed it, is agape. It's not the romantic love, it's not the family or friendship love. It's this divine love. It's this perfect love. And so it's a picture of how we can love. And so what I want to do is just read the first 7-8 verses. I'm not going to read the entire chapter. There's some areas we could definitely go, but just for time purposes, we're going to read 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 8a, the first part of the 8th verse, and then the conclusion of the chapter in verse 13. But listen to these words. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, do not have agape, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, do not have agape, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and I give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, do not have agape, I gain nothing. Love is agape. Love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. Love, agape, love, as described by God, never fails. Love never fails. And then if we fast forward from the 8th verse to the 13th verse, it says, now these 3 remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love, agape love. And so that was a passage that the early founders of AA would go back to just help sort of indicate, how should I live my life? How should I interact with others? And what is great about this topic is none of these descriptors of love are feeling words. If you ask somebody, how would you define love? Many of us, especially as addicts and alcoholics who are feelers by nature, would, say, well, I feel in love and this is what love feels like. And so none of the words, patience, love, or kindness, all like it's none of them are feeling. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It doesn't dishonor. It's not self-seeking. It's this very selfless love. And there's a real overlap from the love chapter and the big book and the 12 and 12. And so I'm going to go right through some of the verses and kind of bring in some recovery quotes and a recovery concept for each of the verses to just see how through recovery eyes we can see it. In these first 3 verses, it's talking about the necessity of love. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Like, I'm making noise, but I'm not accomplishing anything. It tells us in the big book, the spiritual life, it's not a theory. We have to live it. And so that underscores what this verse is saying. It's again almost echoing the sentiments of James about faith without works is dead. We have to live it out. In recovery, actions must be rooted in genuine love and care for others, not just empty words or gestures or platitudes. Love is essential for true spiritual growth and connection. And the truth is, many of us were loved into recovery. Many of us were loved into faith. But if we think about, especially early recovery, how people would come around us and they would just love on us. As much of a mess as we might have been, as crazy as we might have been, they just loved us and loved on us. And that made all the difference. We go to the next verse. If I have the gift of prophecy, in other words, God has kind of shown me, some things to come, and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. It's like if I can do these things, it's almost like a parlor or party trick. I can, look what I can do, but if I don't have love, it doesn't mean anything. The big book does, the quote from James works very well here from page 88. Faith without works is dead. We have all this great faith, but if there's not love attached to it, there's not action attached to it, which love is action, it's just going to fall short. In recovery, having an intellectual understanding or strong faith alone is insufficient without love and compassion toward others. Love must be the foundation of all the actions and beliefs. Just because you know the steps, just because you can guide or point someone through the 4th or 5th step or help them with the 8th or 9th step, if you're not doing it with love, it's hollow at best. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. True ambition, it tells us in the 12 and 12, is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. Sacrifice and charitable acts stem from a genuine love. And to have true meaning and impact in the recovery process, they need to have love. Altruism in recovery should be motivated by love, not personal gain, not recognition. Our work is done in recovery as well as faith. It's not meant to be compensated. It's one beggar helping another beggar. It's somebody showing someone who's hungry where we found bread so that they too can get fed. Acts of charity without love just fall short. And as we transition into the next three verses 4 through 7, these are the qualities of love. And this is maybe the most famous part of the verses and ones that we are maybe most familiar with. But love is patient. That they started there, I think, indicates something. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. Doesn't boast. It's not proud. What a description. Try living that out today. Try living that out for the next hour. It's a high bar. It tells us in the big book, we have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. So we've begun to learn to live with this tolerance and patience and goodwill. Love is patient. Love is kind. We're starting to live in love because of recovery. Practicing patience and kindness is vital in recovery, both towards oneself as well as toward others. These qualities help build that supportive and understanding community, that fellowship that many of us crave and is so important to what our recovery family becomes. And so I love there I go. I love that it uses those words to describe this agape. It goes on to say, it does not dishonor others. Love, that is. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It's showing also what love isn't. Love isn't dishonoring. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Like that love, just so you know what love is and now what love isn't. And we are reminded in the big book, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. We think of ourselves before we think of others. Selfishness, self-centeredness. And we have to have a shift in that understanding. Recovery involves letting go of that selfishness, fostering humility, gaining in humility as we go through the steps, having a sober judgment about ourselves after we do the 4th and 5th step, and then the 6th and 7th step, and ask God to remove the shortcomings that get in the way of our usefulness. That 8 and 9 where we make the list of amends and then make those amends. And by the time we're making those amends, we have a certain understanding of self, a certain accurate appraisal, a certain humility that we bring to that process. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. Why? Because we know the truth will set you free. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace, the big book tells us. Rejoices with the truth, and we're going to know things like peace and serenity. Embracing honesty, integrity in recovery, it leads to true joy as well as peace. Those were some of the things I saw most in early recovery, especially peace. Peace of mind and just peace of soul. There was so much chaos, so much tumult in my soul that I wanted everything to be peaceful. Rejoicing in the truth helps support personal growth and authentic relationships, and so we appreciate that for sure. And then it makes a little turn and it says love agape love, always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. And then in sort of a quote that kind of mirrors it from the big book, our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change, because we're going to start to look for ways to protect, to trust and be trustworthy, and to hope and persevere both on our behalf and on the behalf of others. Love in recovery means providing support and protection to others, protecting others from people, places, and things, protecting others from people who might not have the best intentions for a newcomer, fostering that trust, maintaining hope. You can get and stay sober, and persevering through challenges as they come forth. You can stay sober through anything. Anything that comes down the pike, we can stay sober because we've seen other people do it, and we'll walk with you through it as well. These qualities are foundational for sustaining that long-term sobriety and recovery. And then I love when there's these humdingers, these just great statements, and it says love. Agape love never fails. It never fails. That hopefully will be encouraging. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Another quote from the big book says, "For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge their spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, they could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead." We want to continue to grow, and we've seen that love, as put forth by God, never fails. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. The path will lead to success. And then that takes us to, we jump to the 13th verse, and it says, "And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is agape, is love, divine, holy love." One of my favorite passages in the big book is A Vision for You from page 164. And listen to these words, and how they sort of mirror the "now these three remain" statements. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. I always love to point out that one of the alternate definitions of trudge is to walk with purpose and intention. I think that sometimes when we hear trudge the road of happy destiny, trudge is to walk belaboredly, is the primary definition. But I like that walk with purpose and intention, the road of happy destiny. Although some days, it's the boots are heavier than other days. But honestly, recovery, as well as with faith, it's not so much a trudging process all the time. There are times that we do, but there's a freedom, there's a lightness to living in recovery and in faith. Faith, hope, and love are central to the recovery process, as well as our faith, with love being the most powerful force for healing and transformation. People loved us when we first came into the rooms, and now we get to love others in the same way. These concepts of 1 Corinthians 13 and the principles highlight the importance of love in the journey of recovery, and why our founders would have gone back to this chapter again and again, to be encouraged. I want to read it, just the what love is one more time. And I want you, this is almost meditational. If you're not driving, if you're in a position to, close your eyes and just let these words wash over you. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. Love never fails. And I'll take this one step further. If we see love as an action word, not as a feeling word, and love truly is defined as service to others, I would almost say, I'm going to say, love also equals recovery. Recovery equals love. It equals action. It has the same characteristics as love, and recovery and love, in some ways, recovery should just be synonymous with love. Let me, as you continue to sort of be in that meditative state and the eye closed area, I want to read this one way, and this time I'm going to replace love with the word recovery and see if this isn't a perfect description of recovery. Recovery is patient. Recovery is kind. Recovery doesn't envy. Recovery does not boast. Recovery is not proud. Recovery is not rude. Recovery is not self-seeking. Recovery is not easily angered. Recovery keeps no record of wrongs. Recovery doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Recovery always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always persevere. Recovery, as described by God and brought up through the scriptures, recovery never fails. Rarely have we seen a person fail. Recovery never fails. That's what you're a part of. You're a part of this organization, this group of people that love other people and help them to change their lives, position them in such a way that God can come into them and help them have a spiritual awakening that changes their lives. I want to just close with this final thought about love. And this was shared with me by Pastor Junior, and he had been doing some reading and shared this with the staff, and this was probably a couple years ago now, but it was just impactful, and I think it really makes a lot of sense. And so I want to close with this. But the speed of love, hurry is incompatible with love. Jesus set love as the highest value in his kingdom's economy. When asked what the greatest commandment in all of scriptures was, he responded with, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. But he refused to stop at one command. He added another, love your neighbor as yourself, which is interesting because in recovery, hopefully you'll learn how to love yourself, because many of us come in and we don't love ourselves. And what does that look like, and how do we do that in a proper way that reflects God's love for us? So loving God Part of that is that we recognize what God created in us and loving what God is doing in and through us so that we can love others in a similar way. But know that love is painfully time-consuming. All parents know this, all lovers, long-term friends. There's no shortcuts. There are no life hacks. There's no killer app. It takes an enormous amount of time to love well. Just ask a sponsor who has new sponsees and how time-consuming loving these fledglings in recovery can be. Love and hurry are oil and water. They simply do not mix. I don't know about you, but most of my worst moments, whether as a husband, a father, a pastor, a neighbor, or a friend, they're always when I'm in a hurry, late for an appointment, behind, on an unrealistic to-do list, or trying to cram too much into the day. And then we start to ooze anger and tension and this critical nagging, the antithesis of love. It comes as no surprise that in the Apostle Paul's definition of love, which he's the one who wrote 1 Corinthians 13, the first descriptor that he uses is patient. Love is patient. In this book, in A 3 Mile an Hour God, the late Japanese theologian Kosuke Koyami said it this way, and I love this. God walks slowly because he is love. If he is not love, he would have gone much faster. Love has its speed. It's an inner speed. It's a spiritual speed. It's a different kind of speed from the technological speed to which we are accustomed. It is slow, yet it is Lord over all other speeds because it is the speed of love. There is a reason people say and talk about walking with God, not running with God. It's because God is love, and love is patient. So God walks with us, and we walk with God. It is my hope that today you have been encouraged as we looked at our first classic of 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, and that you were encouraged by this dive into, a little deeper dive into 1 Corinthians 13. Thank you so much for coming to Studio RC. We encourage you to like, to share, to comment, to subscribe, do all those great things. So again, we can just increase our footprint and that people can be blessed by the things that Recovery Church and Studio RC that we're doing. And so thank you so much for coming. And just remember, Recovery Church, 12 steps, one goal. God bless, and we'll see you next episode at Studio RC.